Okay, I just made an observation after the last bird. I actually lost it before it could eat, which is not an uncommon thing. But I continued on my transect and I made an observation. What I observed was an American robin foraging on, it ate a hawthorn berry. And there's actually several up in this tree. I'm going to sort of pan my camera around so that you can see them in here. I don't know if you can barely see their heads. There goes one. So there's several in here. And so what I do when I make these recordings is I actually turn on my voice notes and I actually look at my data sheet and I start to talk because I don't want to take my eyes off the bird. And so with my voice notes on, I glance at my data sheet. If you want to write this list down in a field notebook or have a little card available with the data fields that you want to collect, you can do that and then enter the data quickly after your observation onto your data sheet. It does make it a lot easier to write it in pencil on your data sheet after you're done. But the species was American robin. I was not able, it was an adult bird. I was not able to determine the sex by looking at its plumage. It was doing a near perch foraging maneuver. And then the maneuver is it was picking fruit, and the bird was sitting on a branch and it picked fruit from a smaller branch above it. I'm going to have to look into the Remsen and Robinson classification scheme to get the correct word for that, but that's what I'll do as soon as I finish my recording. I look for that. The habitat is suburban development in greenery, hawthorn bushes. I might put a few words in like that. The vertical height of the bird, and again, I used my method of looking at what the height of a 2-meter high person would be, and I actually estimated it, and it was 3.5 meters. Then the distance from the canopy in this area was only about 1.5 meters because it was a small shrub and there's no canopy above it. Then the height of the foraging substrate is the same as the distance from the canopy in this case. Sometimes there'd be a canopy over that hawthorn and there'd be 2 different measurements there. The horizontal position of this bird would be middle, M. It was not on the trunk, it was not at the tips. It was in the middle of a branch from the trunk of the hawthorn. The foliage density, and so foliage density is, I'm imagining basically a 2-meter diameter, so 1 meter radius around the bird, 2-meter diameter hoop. I like to think of something like a hula hoop that I could just step through, put it up around the bird and estimate foliage density. And in that case, foliage density is going to be about a 4. It was very thick around the bird. And so I would mark that at 4. I can also estimate the percentage, and so it was about 85% foliage density. So I can double check that with the Remsen and Robinson to make sure that that's a 4. So you can write the number if you can't remember the categories, or you can write the categories in a field notebook. The substrate was a hawthorn shrub, and the actual thing that it was eating was a fruit. And then the size of the fruit, I can actually, it was about 1/2 the size of the bill, but I can actually also go up to these fruits and measure them myself. And then the handling technique, I think it just ate it, but again, I have to check with Remsen and Robinson. So there's 3 things I'm going to check, and I'll come back and make a note about how they fit into Remsen and Robinson. And then note number, I would put a note in this one saying, I would put a note number down and I'd flip my paper over and I would say, this bird was in a group of about 4 other robins foraging in the tree. And then I might go through methodically and observe each individual robin. Okay, so I'm going to come back with the Remsen and Robinson notes.